Have you ever smelled something unfamiliar yet utterly different from the usual stench of a sewer tank? Not musty, not naturally foul, but something fishy suffocating with a bizarre edge, as if signaling a horrifying secret buried beneath. In a peaceful rural area of Springfield, Ohio, on a morning in August 2021, an elderly man accidentally detected a strange odor rising from a septic pit behind his house. Thinking it might be a dead rat or a leaking pipe, he decided to lift the lid to check, but he never expected to uncover something he would never forget. This is the case that shocked an entire county with its unimaginable twists, an offender with a solid alibi. Innocent people almost sent to jail, a perfectly staged crime scene undone by a single small mistake. If you enjoy true crime stories, hit like, subscribe, and follow us for the next chapters. On the morning of August 12, 2021, the skies above Springfield, Ohio were overcast after a light overnight rain. The ground remained damp, faintly smelling of mud and long grass. Mr. Thomas Turner, 64 years old, lived alone in an old single-story house in the quiet Maple Grove neighborhood. As he opened the back door to feed his chickens, he suddenly recoiled. A pungent odor shot straight to his nose, thick and overwhelming. It made him stagger. What a strange smell, definitely not the usual manure odor, he thought. That old septic pit behind his house had been built over a decade ago with a thick concrete lid. He only opened it occasionally. But he had never smelled anything like this. It wasn't just foul, but that rotten chemical-masked stench that made breathing almost impossible. At first, he assumed it was a dead rat or some animal trapped inside. But by noon, the smell worsened. It was penetrating even through the concrete. So he called the Springfield Township Police, voice trembling. "I think something's wrong, officers. This odor, it's really odd." About 30 minutes later, 2 officers from Springfield Township arrived with flashlights, masks, and pry bars. In Mr. Turner's presence, they pried open the cover. A concrete slab roughly 4 inches thick was pushed aside, releasing a thin plume of white smoke and a stench so fierce all 3 of them covered their faces. One officer exclaimed, "It's not a rat, something larger." A flashlight beam revealed something dark floating in the foul liquid. They hooked a metal tool and gently pulled. Slowly, a horrifying scene emerged. A faded olive-green sack like those used for sand, tied tightly with paracord. The sack was decayed. Part of a decomposing human body was exposed. The 2 officers froze for a moment. The stench of decay mixed with human waste made the air thick. The younger officer couldn't stand it. He stepped aside, vomiting. The other, though experienced, tightened his mask. Finding a body, they immediately called the state medical examiner and secured the scene. News was relayed up to the county sheriff's office. Within 2 hours, detectives from the Springfield County Sheriff's Violent Crimes Unit and forensic scientists from the Ohio Bureau of Investigation had arrived. They cordoned off the area behind Mr. Turner's house with red tape. Investigators in full white protective gear carefully lifted the sack from the pit and cleaned it to identify the body. The victim was a woman in her early 30s, long hair, hands and feet bound with gray paracord. There were signs of blunt force trauma to the head and neck. Old bruises on her arms suggested she had been dragged or fought back. Inside the sack, the overpowering smell of chemical cleaner indicated the killer deliberately used it to slow decomposition and mask the odor. That afternoon, forensic analysis confirmed the victim was Emily Mae Nguyen, 30, from the town of Silver Creek, who had been reported missing since mid-July. Her family had distributed flyers all over the county market, but no one expected such a horrendous discovery. The case shocked the entire community. People whispered Mr. Turner was a kind gentleman who had lived there for decades. No one expected such horror at his home. Still, some murmured in half-jokes. In these days, you never know. Nice old man could be hiding a body under his house. The investigation by the Ohio Bureau of Investigation classified the case as especially severe. A special investigation task force was immediately formed that night, directly led by Lieutenant Colonel Michael Vin Tran, head of the Springfield County Violent Crimes Unit. All of the victims' relationships were revisited from the beginning. Who was the killer? Why choose a septic tank to dispose of the body? Could the murderer be standing right there among the curious crowd pretending to be shocked? August 13, 2021, Springfield County Police Headquarters. The atmosphere in the investigative briefing room was tense and heavy. On the whiteboard was a photo of the victim, Emily May Nguyen, next to a complex web of social connections drawn in red marker. Names, arrows, annotations, an intricate spider web with a voiceless death at its center. Emily, a solitary woman, was nonetheless deeply entangled in complicated social ties. This wasn't a random killing, Lieutenant Colonel Tran confirmed. The killer knew the victim acted with intent, carefully planned the murder and body disposal to delay discovery. This was a premeditated crime. Victim file: Emily May Nguyen, 30 years old, associate's degree in accounting. Occupation: self-employed, small-scale fabric trading, rented a warehouse near the township market. Status: divorced for 3 years, no children. Previously lived in Silver Creek, then moved to a small rental house near her storage. Notably, she was quiet and had few close friends, but a wide social network in business circles, including vague romantic ties with several married men. A clearer picture began to form. Emily wasn't a gentle loner, but a sharp, independent woman with strong opinions, who had previously clashed with others over both money and love. August 14th, 2021. The task force identified 3 primary suspects. 1. Victor Lee, a freelance truck driver from Westfield County. Relationship: dated the victim for over a year before a tumultuous breakup. History: fined for assaulting Emily in 2020, had been accused of threats. Suspicion: some heard him say, "Traitors will pay someday." Unaccounted for during early July, the period of Emily's disappearance. However strong alibi, he was receiving COVID-19 treatment at Springfield Field Hospital. No. 2. From July 6th to July 18th. Medical records, SpO2 charts, hospital staff, and security footage confirmed his presence. Ruled out as a suspect. 2. Howard Dewey, small appliance shop owner in Maple Grove. Marital status: married with 2 young children. Relationship: rumored to have had a romantic involvement with Emily in late 2020. Suspicion: gossip suggested his wife found messages and reacted with jealousy. Emily's warehouse was once vandalized, possibly connected. Neighbors reported Howard visiting her home late at night. His statement: "I haven't spoken to Emily since early June. It's over." Alibi claimed he was at home with his wife and kids the night of July 8th when Emily likely died. Red flag: home security camera footage was interrupted from 8 p.m. to 10 p.m. on July 8th. Extracted video showed signs of tampering. Technical team is recovering data from the SD card. 3. David Knox, owner of a small construction material supply business. Connection: owed Emily around $3,000 in loans. Conflict: she had repeatedly pressured him to repay and even threatened legal action. Suspicion: messages between them on July 5th showed Emily warning, "Pay up this week or I'll report you." CCTV near Emily's warehouse recorded David's presence at 8:17 p.m. July 8th. However, GPS data from his phone indicated he was merely passing by and didn't stop for more than 3 minutes. His phone signals and travel log matched the locations he reported. Not enough evidence to charge David as the killer. August 15th, 2021. Emergency meeting of the task force. After 72 hours of investigation, all 3 main suspects had varying degrees of alibi. Although Howard Dewey raised the most suspicion, evidence was still insufficient to indict him. Meanwhile, a more disturbing truth began to emerge. The killer might be someone entirely outside all initial speculation, or someone capable of staging the scene and erasing evidence with exceptional precision. Lieutenant Colonel Michael Vin Tran said during the internal briefing, "We're being misled." The victim appeared increasingly secretive in her final months. It's possible she knew she was being threatened. Let's narrow our focus to those in her immediate circle. The warehouse landlord, neighbors, delivery workers. The killer could be someone nearby, someone so familiar that he knew exactly how to avoid the suspect list. The investigation team silently watched a large screen showing recovered footage from a security camera outside Emily's home. The hard drive had accidentally been formatted, but forensic techs managed to restore part of the data. Though the footage was blurry, it clearly showed a man wearing a baseball cap and face mask sneaking into Emily's warehouse through the back door at 8:13 p.m. on July 8th. Forensics confirmed the footage had been edited using basic software to erase the time frame from 8 p.m. to 10 p.m. However, 25 seconds of uncorrupted footage were recovered. The suspect, Howard Dewey, whose home cameras mysteriously lost signal during Emily's time of death, was summoned again. This time, Dewey remained calmer, but when investigators compared his height and build with the figure in the footage and referenced the light purple-patterned white shirt he had once worn as described by a witness, he became visibly uneasy. I don't remember going to Emily's house that day. If I did, it must have been by chance. You had a romantic relationship with the victim. Your wife found out, didn't she? It was over. I had no reason to kill her. The investigator silently placed a receipt on the table, a purchase for gray paracord from a hardware store near Dewey's home dated July 6th. The cord matched the one used to bind the victim. August 17th, 2021. A new revelation. The team reanalyzed Emily's phone GPS logs. Though her phone had powered off on the night of July 8th, Google location data showed she had visited an unfamiliar address deep within Maple Grove Township on the afternoon of July 7th. Upon inspection, the location turned out to be a discreetly rented room, leased under a fake name. The landlord revealed that Emily had visited multiple times, usually staying an hour or two, meeting a man in worker's clothes riding a motorcycle with fake plates. Suddenly, David Knox, previously ruled out for just passing by, was brought back under suspicion. Technical investigators found a major flaw: the GPS tracker David had used to prove his location on July 8th wasn't on his person. Instead, it was installed on a different phone, left inside a parked car outside a friend's house over 3 kilometers from the crime scene. A witness came forward stating he had seen David wearing a full-face motorcycle helmet and transporting a large sack on a motorbike heading toward Mr. Thomas Turner's house, the site where Emily's body was later discovered in the septic pit. On August 18, 2021, Dewey was officially removed from the suspect list. Surveillance footage clearly showed the man entering Emily's warehouse at 8:13 p.m. was shorter and stockier, unlike Dewey, who was tall and broad-shouldered. Additionally, no fingerprints matching Dewey were found on the sack or ropes used to bind the victim. The investigation team pivoted fully toward David Knox. A dramatic breakthrough occurred during the search of his private warehouse in a neighboring township. There, investigators discovered a roll of paracord identical in type and batch number to the cord purchased on July 6th. Beneath a paint bucket, they found a black shirt stained with blood. Hidden inside a detergent container was a burner phone filled with messages David had sent Emily, some of which included threats. "If you push me, I won't go down alone." David was urgently arrested on the afternoon of August 18, 2021, in a state of panic. Initially, he denied everything, claiming he was being framed. But faced with the overwhelming forensic and logical evidence, he finally fell silent, saying nothing for over 3 hours. August 19, 2021, a critical flaw in the alibi was confirmed. The GPS-linked phone had no recent fingerprints, only old prints from several days prior, proving it hadn't been used actively during the crime. From someone previously ruled out, David Knox became the prime suspect. Yet the true motive behind the murder remained a mystery. Investigators believed a deeper secret had yet to be revealed, and it was possible that Emily had possessed information so dangerous David had decided to silence her forever. Night of August 19, 2021. Interrogation room, Springfield County Police. The cold white light glared off the metal table. 3 investigators, a clerk taking notes, and David Knox, the prime suspect, sat in silence. He slumped low in his seat, his face pale, sweat collecting on his forehead. No longer the friendly hardware dealer, he was now a man teetering on the edge of truth. "Do you know the punishment for murder?" one officer asked. I didn't mean to kill her. I just lost control." David muttered, his voice raspy. That ambiguous confession was the key that unlocked the entire chilling motive, which went beyond financial disputes. David's full statement revealed everything. In early 2021, he had borrowed $3,000 from Emily to invest in his business, but the venture failed. When Emily began pressuring him to repay, she didn't just demand money, she threatened to expose a shocking secret. Emily had a recording in which David admitted to pocketing kickbacks from a public construction project by falsifying supply reports, embezzling tens of thousands of dollars. If this information came to light, David would face serious criminal charges. He had begged Emily to delete the recording, but she refused. In fact, she used it as leverage. "If you don't pay me back on time, I'll send the file to the authorities." I'm not joking. David confessed he originally planned only to sneak into her home and delete the recording from her phone. But when Emily caught him, they struggled. During the scuffle, she fell and struck her head on the edge of a wooden cabinet. Blood gushed out. I panicked. I didn't mean to. But I knew if she lived, I was done for. What followed was a hurried cover-up. He wrapped her body in a sack, dragged it out through the back door. He knew Mr. Turner, the elderly neighbor, had a septic tank behind his house, rarely opened. Under cover of darkness, David transported the body there on his motorbike, dumped it in the pit, and covered it with sludge and old debris. Before leaving, he took Emily's phone, removed the SIM card, and burned it. To forge an alibi, David left his own phone with GPS tracking inside a friend's parked car, claiming he was out camping for the night. In truth, it was all an elaborate setup to buy time and mislead investigators. August 20th, 2021, the task force verified David's statement. The construction project's manager confirmed that David had supplied materials and had previously complained about unexplained cost hikes. Emily's cousin, who had her email password, provided access to her computer. Recovered drafts showed she had written an anonymous email addressed to the state construction inspectorate but had never sent it. The motive was now crystal clear: to silence a whistleblower and destroy the evidence. The man once seen as just a troubled debtor turned out to be a cold-blooded killer, calculating and ruthless. But even he couldn't escape the truth. August 22nd, 2021, a warrant was approved to indict and detain David Knox on charges of murder with malicious intent, desecration and concealment of a corpse, tampering with evidence, obstructing a criminal investigation. The residents of Maple Grove were still in shock. To them, David had always seemed like a kind, hard-working man. But few knew that behind that face was a man driven by fear, by greed, and by the darkness of secrets exposed. August 23rd, 2021. Just as the case seemed closed with David's confession and overwhelming evidence ready for the prosecutor's office, a new clue emerged, one so unexpected that the entire investigation team was forced to stay up through the night. A forensic analyst recovering data from Emily May Nguyen's personal laptop discovered an unsent draft email in her drafts folder. When the contents were revealed, the entire homicide unit fell silent. The intended recipient, the Springfield State Department of Construction Oversight. Subject: I have evidence of financial misconduct in the Maple Grove Community Center construction project. The message alleged not only David Knox's involvement in receiving kickbacks and budget tampering, but also implicated Mr. Samuel Thorne, deputy chairman of the Maple Grove Township Council. Emily claimed to have an audio recording of a conversation between David and Mr. Thorne held on June 28th at Rockwood Cafe. "If anything happens to me, please investigate them. I can't stay silent any longer." August 24th, 2021. The task force quietly launched a second line of investigation. The target, Samuel Thorne, who had publicly expressed sympathy and assisted in the search efforts after Emily's disappearance. That afternoon at Rockwood Cafe, investigators requested CCTV footage from June 28th, the date Emily had mentioned. Though the system was outdated, the data remained intact. The footage was clear. It showed David Knox and Samuel Thorne seated in a corner conversing for nearly an hour. Emily could be seen at a farther table wearing wireless earbuds and holding her phone. She left shortly after the two men stood to go. The conclusion: Emily had indeed recorded the meeting, but her phone no longer contained the file. It had likely been erased or destroyed. August 25th, 2021, the cyber forensics team accessed Emily's Google Drive using credentials provided by her cousin. Inside a private folder labeled Backup, they discovered a file that had been renamed but still intact. Upon playback, David and Thorne's voices were unmistakable. "I've handled the materials part. You just need to sign off. As long as we split things evenly, I'll manage the rest. Just make sure nothing leaks. Emily's suspicious. She's been asking me a lot. If this gets out, we're all screwed. Then deal with it." Do I need to say more? August 26, 2021. A subpoena was issued for Samuel Thorne. At the station, he denied all accusations until investigators played the recording. His face paled. "I was joking. It wasn't serious." A government official joking about embezzling state funds, the detective replied coldly. The broader investigation uncovered that the Maple Grove Community Center project's budget had mysteriously doubled after its inspection phase. David Knox had been appointed as the exclusive supplier of construction materials without a public bidding process. A budget report had been amended on July 2nd, just days after Emily had threatened to reveal her evidence via email. Though Thorne did not confess, authorities had gathered enough evidence to charge him with abuse of power for personal gain. The murder case, it turned out, was just the tip of the iceberg. Beneath it lay a corrupt local network where one brave woman's death became a dire warning. David Knox now faced a potential death sentence for murder committed to conceal another crime. Samuel Thorne was facing criminal charges, possible removal from office, and asset seizure. August 28, 2021, the Nguyen family held a memorial service for Emily at New Harmony Temple. As chants and incense filled the air, many wept openly. No longer was Emily seen as merely a divorced woman living alone. She was now remembered as someone who dared to expose darkness even at the cost of her life. December 15, 2021. The courtroom was packed. Residents of Maple Grove gathered in numbers not seen before. All waited for justice in a case that had cast a shadow over their quiet town. Defendant David Knox, now gaunt, no longer had the reckless look from when he was first arrested. Defendant Samuel Thorne, the disgraced former deputy chairman, sat with his head down, avoiding the eyes of the public. The full verdict was read over the course of nearly 2 tense emotional hours, each word weighing heavily in the silent courtroom. The court ruled, David Knox, death penalty for murder, committed to conceal another crime, 7 years in prison for desecration of a corpse, 5 years in prison for destruction of evidence. Total sentence, death penalty. Samuel Thorne, 15 years in prison for abusing his power in public office, prohibited from holding any government position for 10 years following sentence confiscation of 1.2 billion VND worth of assets gained through unreported embezzlement. After the verdict, the judge called for a 1-minute silence in honor of Emily May Nguyen, the woman who bravely recorded the final piece of evidence even as she knew danger was closing in. Justice had arrived, but not without struggle. Behind the light of truth were sleepless nights endured by the Springfield County investigators, from local police to state-level officers, working in tandem with the Federal Criminal Forensics Bureau. No manhunt could have succeeded without the ingenuity that recovered crucial digital files, the bravery to investigate powerful local officials, and the unyielding belief in the truth, no matter the risks. This was a chilling wake-up call to society. Evil does not rise from the shadows, it thrives in silence. Had Emily not courageously recorded that conversation, the corruption would have continued to bleed the community dry. Had investigators not persisted, her death might have been forever buried in that septic tank. Justice may come late, but when it arrives, it brings light strong enough to expose all darkness. You've just listened to another episode in our investigative series based on real-life cases brought to you by Justice Radio, where gripping crimes reveal society's darkest corners, and the truth can no longer be hidden. If you believe this story deserves to be heard to ensure no one else suffers the fate Emily did, please like, share, and subscribe. Justice Radio speaks the truth, giving voice to those who can no longer speak. See you in the next case.